Hello, you're watching Shattered Truth. Today's story is about a husband's suspicion that his wife is being unfaithful. So make yourself a cup of tea, get comfortable, and open your ears. Let's begin.
He watches a man come apart without making a sound. The man's name is Ethan Cole, and the warp starts in the small motions, the way he unlocks his phone twice because the first time doesn't feel secure, the way he reopens the same cabinet because he cannot accept an empty shelf, the way he stands too long on the threshold, arms loose but ready. He has decided, without proof he trusts, that his wife is lying to him. That decision hardens everything. He moves through their townhouse like an inspector who has misplaced the manual he once wrote for himself, checking drawers he checked an hour ago, checking browser histories he already printed, checking a calendar that no longer answers. He tells himself this is vigilance. It is need. It is love corrected. He will not name the current pulsing through him. He only sets down the cup he isn't drinking and starts counting hours he cannot get back.
He has what appears to be an ordinary life in a city that advertises it. Columbus, Ohio, mid-size, and practiced at forgetting one thing while building another. He runs fleet logistics for a regional contractor. He thinks in routes, return times, margin, fuel. His wife, Mara, works the late shift managing a boutique hotel near the river. She thinks in arrivals, room turnover, missing pillows, what a guest will notice first. Their friends, when they still had them over on Saturdays, used to admire the visible order. 2 incomes, 2 calendars. 1 car paid off early, 1 still eating pieces of their evenings. A condo with a stairwell narrow enough to keep them near each other on the climb. The posture of a couple that can absorb shocks, that is the context. Stated without nostalgia. No myths, no early vows replayed, just a ledger where the math once worked. Now, the numbers argue.
He begins with the texts. An unlisted number appears 3 times in 1 week, always late, always concise. No greeting, 1 line, nothing incriminating, nothing benign. He copies the number onto a yellow sticky and puts it under his keyboard at work, the same way he keeps plate numbers that cut them off on the interstate, the same way he keeps order IDs that went wrong and then right. He tries a reverse lookup. It returns nothing he trusts. He notes the way Mara arches toward her screen and away from him when those messages arrive. He notes a new habit. She charges her phone in the bathroom, not by the bed. He notes how fast she clears the notification, how the light restarts immediately, how she glances at the mirror and not the door. He tells himself to wait for a fact. Then he watches her add a passcode to a notes app she never used before. The fact arrives. He feeds it to an emptiness that asks for more.
He changes his own habits under the banner of efficiency. He updates the shared calendar before she can. He leaves earlier and returns later. And he says nothing about where those extra hours go. In truth, those hours go into watching. He parks across from the hotel on a night when she says she will be late, and he counts the staff who exit after closing, not recognizing their silhouettes, but cataloging their shapes. He watches a man in a maintenance jacket walk Mara to the back lot. No touch, no laughter, just a straight line and a clipped exchange at the trunk of her car. He has promised himself he will not imagine dialogue. He has promised himself he will stick to motion. He films the walk on his phone and never watches it later. He only keeps it. In the morning, he checks the odometer and sees a negligible change that still matters to him. He buys a tiny GPS tile, the kind made for keys, and slides it into a side pocket of her tote when she is in the shower. He tells himself it is not betrayal if she started first.
There is a Wednesday when the tile shows a detour, not the hotel, not home, a storage facility near a highway on-ramp, rows of units painted the color of denial, lights that make everything look rented. He drives there and parks far enough that he can pretend it's coincidence if someone asks. He watches her badge in, Walk to unit E312 and kneel by the rolling door as if the padlock responds to the warmth of her hands. He cannot see inside, but the way her shoulders settle tells him she belongs to what's in there. He writes the unit number on his palm. He times how long she stays. He leaves before she does, so he can arrive home and look unbroken. That night, he asks no questions. He eats without tasting. He hears her text tone and imagines a door clanging upward in a private aisle. He imagines a couch inside, or a bed. He imagines nothing else, because he wants to be merciful to himself.
The next day is Thursday. She leaves at the usual time and does not arrive at the hotel. He knows because he watches the tile. It pings once near a bus stop. It pings again on the move, then stops on a block he cannot map to anything in their life. He tells himself this is a glitch. He waits 9 minutes, the longest he can survive without an answer, then drives. The tile shows her at a short-term parking lot near a rideshare hub. He finds nothing except orange cones and a kiosk that prints receipts someone can photograph to prove they were never there. The tile moves again. He cannot follow on traffic. He pulls into a gas station and reloads the app and reloads himself, and then he watches the dot reach the storage facility. He does not think, he only steers. He has never believed in omens, but he recognizes an absence shaped like one when he rolls past E312 and sees the padlock on the ground. The unit is open 2 feet, enough to suggest a decision, not enough to reveal a story. He lifts the door. Inside are boxes labeled in her quick slant, not romantic labels, practical ones. Winter clothes, receipts, kitchen extras, chargers. One box is unmarked, taped without care. He opens it. Inside, duplicates of essentials, a new phone still sealed, a roll of cash tight with a rubber band, a copy of their marriage certificate, a key he does not recognize, a flash drive, a printed list of phone numbers with no names, and a folded page, an intake form for a shelter he didn't know existed. The line for emergency contact is blank. The tile shows nothing now. He feels the unit tilt and he adjusts his stance, and the floor remains level, so he understands it is him.
He loses the luxury of appearing reasonable. He calls guests at the hotel and asks for Mara under the pretense of confirming a reservation. He harvests apologetic voices that cannot help him. He drives to the maintenance office and asks about the man in the jacket. He holds his questions like tools, no edges showing. The man says nothing useful because Ethan does not ask him directly. Ethan only scans his face and looks for a flinch that never happens. He contacts the rideshare company with a support email and a tone laid over with corporate urgency. There is a form to fill out and a promise of response and a timeline that insults him. He checks the storage unit again and recounts the cash, hating the calm arithmetic of it. He takes the flash drive to his office because he cannot bear to load it on their home machine. On the drive is a single folder named Routes. Inside, a spreadsheet. Dates, times, cross streets, a single initial in a far column, H, and a second initial, E. His name. Someone has been mapping them. He tells himself she must have done this for safety. He tells himself that and then remembers the sealed phone and stops telling himself anything. He files a missing person report because the site tells him to wait 24 hours, and he cannot. He hands over a photo and refuses to describe her in a way that reduces her to 5 lines and a height range. He answers the easy questions. He does not admit that he placed a tracker. He does not admit the storage unit. He does not admit the shelter form. He leaves with a case number that looks like the serial on a product he will never purchase.
He follows the initial H. He builds a list of names that fit that letter and appear in her recent orbit. A head chef, a housekeeper, a human resources coordinator, a guest who left too many compliments in an online form. He checks their public profiles without shame. He finds someone else instead, not a match to H at all, a lawyer named Nathan Cole, same last name as his, a coincidence that feels choreographed. The lawyer's firm handles restraining orders and emergency motions, and quiet filings that revise the shape of homes. He calls the number, no one answers. He goes to the address, a receptionist tells him in a perfectly neutral tone to schedule. He leaves and notices a clipboard on a side table with a sign-in sheet, 2 names above his, written earlier that morning, Mara Cole, and below it, a second hand in a different pen adding a notation, incognito consult. He understands the word even as he refuses it. He walks to the elevator and rides down without moving. When the doors open, he exits and forgets his car's level. He climbs until he smarts, and then he finds the exit ramp and stands outside in the bright, and he calls no one. He holds every call he wants to make in his throat until they dissolve. He goes back to the storage unit because the unit answers. On his second pass through the boxes, he finds a thin envelope wedged in the corner, addressed to an initial he has never seen her use, MR. He does not open it because he tells himself he is not that version of a man. He opens it anyway. Inside is a rental receipt for a second unit, smaller, in the same facility. He walks there and unlocks it with the key from the first box. Inside is absence made deliberate, an empty backpack, a single water bottle, a pair of walking shoes with the tag still on, a charger without a phone to accept it, and a laminated card explaining legal rights in simple language. He tries to find a way to make this about betrayal. The facts reposition his outline until he recognizes the category he fits.
He wants to escape himself, so he builds work. He maps the route spreadsheet onto a city grid and draws the lines no one asked for. He notices the crossings. He plans a stakeout that would make no sense to a rational friend and no difference to a kind one. He pursues anyway. On Friday at 10:40 p.m., he returns to the hotel. He positions himself where he can see the rear exit and the staff lot, where the cameras tilt wide and no one cares about one more idling car. He waits. He catalogs faces for later. He sees the maintenance man again, jacket unzipped now, carrying a coil of cable and a tool case heavy enough to tell its own story. He sees a woman from housekeeping carry a bag with the weight and care of an item borrowed, not possessed. He sees in none of it a wife. He wants distraction and refuses to move. At 11:08 p.m., a sedan pulls in and parks 2 spots from where Mara would park. The driver kills the lights and waits. Minutes pass. The passenger door opens from inside. No one exits. The door closes. The car does not move. He thinks of a phrase, handoff, and drops it for fear of what it implies. At 11:18 p.m., the sedan reverses and leaves. He is left with lanes and nothing in them. He tells himself he will wait until midnight and then go home and accept the hours he has damaged. At 11:56 p.m., his phone buzzes. A new message arrives from the unlisted number, which he had left open in a pin at the top of the screen because he could not bear to misplace it. The message is brutally plain. Stop. You're making it worse. No name, no threat, just a sentence that lands like a diagnosis. He does not obey it. He returns to the storage facility at closing and parks outside the gate. He knows the code now. He could enter and stand inside that aisle and feel like a decision has been made. He stays outside and watches the night guard make a round. He recognizes the worst version of his plan forming. He wants to catch her returning to her own escape. He wants to be necessary again. He sits very still and lets that want shrink him.
Saturday produces something that looks usable. A withdrawal on their shared account in the morning, small and careful, at an ATM on a street where neither of them goes unless instructed by a task. He drives there, parks, checks the camera domes, examines the ground for nothing specific, and then he sees a receipt in the trash can, folded but clean, printed minutes after the withdrawal, and on the back, a list written in Mara's quick hand. Not groceries, not errands, 4 single words. Copy, locker, proof, noon. He looks up. Across the street is a train station with rental lockers and a photo booth and a place that sells pagers to people who still need pagers because their jobs are older than their phones. He goes into the station and buys a 1-hour locker code. He opens a locker and finds it empty. He opens 3 more in sequence, wasting money he can justify later as leverage. He finds nothing until the last, a manila envelope with his name written on it. He opens it and finds a stack of photos taken from the angle of his car's dashboard mount and his phone's front lens and a camera he has never seen. He studies himself from angles he didn't consent to. In each picture, he is waiting alone for something he did not define. In one, he is parked outside the hotel, face a blank square of need. In another, he is at the storage facility gate, leaning forward as if the air beyond the fence owes him an answer. In the last, he is in their kitchen, holding her phone the night before he installed the tile, the image caught in the reflection of the microwave door. He is furious at the precision and grateful for it, because clarity is its own mercy. He takes the envelope and leaves, and accepts that his alibi is broken in places he cannot mend. He understands that the other initial on the spreadsheet, H, must be a helper, not a lover. He understands that someone warned him and that warning did not come from a rival. He drives to the police station and sets the envelope on a desk and tries to explain rage scaled down into fear. He listens to the officer say words about procedures and timelines and not making unilateral moves. He hears those words and realizes he has been making nothing else.
It arrives without choreography. He returns to the storage unit one more time because he is starving for any motion that is not standing in his own reflection. The aisle is empty. E312 is locked. He kneels and touches the new padlock, as if he can read a code through heat. Behind him, footsteps. He turns and sees a woman he recognizes from the hotel's front desk, not a close co-worker of Mara, but a frequent presence in the staff area. She stops at the mouth of the aisle and holds her phone in a way that signals a recording has already begun. He wants to raise his hands and declines the theater. She looks at him and says nothing. Because this story is without dialogue by design, so the only language is what people do. She holds the phone steady. She nods to the side. He moves left, into frame. She stands there until another figure appears behind her. Mara walks into the aisle with the posture of someone who finished a long job and still has to submit a report. She looks at the unit. She looks at him. She raises a key in the air and lowers it into her pocket and does not unlock anything. She stands without trembling. The front desk woman, Hannah, he remembers now, H, keeps the phone trained.
Mara takes a single step forward. He does not step back because he is not that version of a man anymore. He waits and lets the air count. She lifts her hand and lays down a badge on the concrete. Hotel, her name, no longer magnetic to their door. She lays down a second card, library maybe, or a transit pass. She lays down a third, a small laminated sheet listing rights and resources. She is putting down the scaffolding of escape in front of the man she escaped. The act does not read as surrender, it reads as a record. He understands. She is building the moment she will show later, in a room with lamps that do not hum and chairs that do not scrape, where someone will ask her if she tried to resolve things directly. She is doing it now, with a witness, and he is the other half of this geometry.
He chooses the only move that fits. He reaches into his pocket and forms his hand around the small tile, the one he hid in her bag. He walks to the padlock and sets the tile on top of it. He does not look at her when he steps back. He looks at Hannah's phone. He knows the line needs to be clean. He nods once, not to request a cut, not to ask for mercy, but to mark the end of a scene. Hannah stops recording. Mara keeps her hands visible. No one speaks. He walks out of the aisle and does not turn around before the gate. He reaches his car and sits without starting it. His heart tries to perform a different job for which it is untrained.
He drives to the station again. He signs the paper he should have signed sooner. He hands over the tile and the envelope and a written account that refuses the word explanation and uses the word admission instead. He does not perform a defense. He describes actions, tracking, waiting, searching, opening, reconstructing, and says the words "I did," and "I chose," and "I knew." He completes the report about the missing person and changes its tense to present, known location. Safe, not willing to share address with spouse. He accepts the instructions and the conditions. He walks out with less weight, but no victory.
He returns to the townhouse and the empty is larger than before, but it is honest now, and he stands in it and does not fill it with noise, and he lives with what remains.
Thanks for being here. Subscribe and leave a like so you won't miss the next story. Your support means everything.